Helping you when you weren't listening, so.
That's all right. I rarely listen anyway. Just ask my wife.
What's that?
I said I'm rarely listening anyway. Just ask my wife. Okay, I think there's enough of us here to begin. So we'll call the meeting to order. It's 5:32. It's a joint caucus of the Republican and Democratic caucuses. So we have with us Joe Hoffman, myself, Paul Arena, Aaron Booker, Brad Lindmark, Burt Gurl, John Butita, Gene Crosby, Kevin McCarthy, Dave Kelly, Jim Webster, Keith McDonald, Fred Westcott, Dave Tassoni, Dorothy Red, Angie Gorel, Jaime Salgado, and Angela Fellers. Have I missed anybody?
Say Keith.
I think I did. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, this week's meeting, we have the invocation and pledge by Aaron Booker. Did you know that, Aaron? You're good? Okay. Going down the list here. Appointments. So for appointments, we have Dorothy Red to the Community Action Agency Board, North Park Water, Public Water District Board. This one's laid over from a previous meeting. Brett Hruby, Harlem Roscoe Fire District Board, it was laid over also. Al Box Senior, and 911 Emergency Telephone System Board, a reappointment, Don Carlson. Board of Review, Jay Douthard. Is that how you say his name?
Dowhart.
Dowhart. Okay, Jay Dowhart and Pamela Cunningham. And Jay.
No, it's Jay Douthart.
What was that?
It's Jay Douthart.
Douthard?
Jay Douthart.
Jay Douthard. Thank
Can
you.
you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit. It was like,
Okay.
thank you, Miss Red. Jay Douthard and Pamela Cunningham. So Jay Douthard is a reappointment and Pamela Cunningham would be a new appointment. Is there any discussion on any of the appointments to the boards? Okay. Standing committees. First is Finance, Mr. Salgado.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's 3 items. 2 of them are the Senate bills that we've kind of talked about that were laid over from last meeting. So I don't know if there is any other information that has come through on those 2 bills. I'm just going to wait and see what, especially Mr. Arena or whatever, or anyone else that has more information on the trustee and on the health department, obviously the board. So those are the 2 things that we were waiting some answers. And so we'll just wait on those to see what happens on Thursday. If we want to continue to keep it laid over or whatever for our next meeting until we get more concrete answers, we'll figure that out. Yeah, go ahead.
So what input I could give you on those is nothing happened with the 1721. So it was not called in committee and there's been no further amendment than the one that we talked about last time that was a little change in definition. Senate Bill 2278 was amended and passed through Revenue Committee. This is the one affecting the mental health tax or mental health board. What it says now is that it's the operation of the board is at the county board's discretion. So I think it reinforces our authority over the mental health board, or I don't know if it expands it. It might not have been defined before, but it comes down to, I think all of us had talked about being in agreement to have our board operate the way a 708 board does. And there's nothing in this bill that would prevent us from doing that, from changing our ordinance to be more specific on that point. I talked with Ms. Fellers about it. She had some insight into why they wanted it to be open. I believe she told me that 2 counties would prefer that their health department board or board of health regulate these funds. Is that correct, Ms. Fellers?
Yes, that's correct. There were 2 counties that were that would be affected by the bill who were hoping to put the mental health board under the control of the health department, which would be an additional pass through. And so you're correct.
Okay, so it doesn't impair us at all. And on both of these, what I would suggest we do on Thursday is just continue to lay them over, and we could have them before us in case these bills take a turn one way or the other, and then we can just address it at that time. But I don't see any like urgency in taking any action on either one.
Sounds good to me.
Okay,
All right, and then our last item is the capital improvement budget, that kind of ordinance that, what passed through finance. And so I'll just give a quick highlight. It's pretty much securing $3 million for this 2021 budget in regards to from the host fees, and then $6 million obviously would come from the rescue plan qualifications for the COVID response. So that's where we're at on that. There's going to be a presentation done, I believe, before the actual vote that goes on. So, and that will be laid over in case there are any questions regarding items that are in that capital improvement project. And if there are any questions regarding, can we get rid of it, or, is there opportunity for us to do that? One of the questions that Mr. Rickard presented was, staggering the, essentially the sheriff's units of patrol units out there, vehicles and stuff like that. So they're working on those things. It's quite a laundry list. So I believe, I don't know if everybody got an email from Mr. Richter with, I think they put it out there on their internet site or whatever, where you can get the financial information. But if you don't, I will certainly can forward that information to you, so you have it available before Thursday. But yeah, so essentially what we're doing is we're allocating about $3 million from the host fees to capital to essentially work with that capital improvement project that obviously we're going to present to you guys. So that's where it came out of finance. There was a couple questions on some of the different projects that are out there, but that's going to come through us, and it's going to be laid over. But there is a presentation that's going to be done this Thursday coming by Mr. Richter.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
With the automobiles, does that include the sheriff's department?
Yes, it does.
Why does the sheriff's department not have their own capital improvement program?
Because I think it does, and I don't have that list on whether it falls within the rescue plan or whatever as part of it. I believe it does. I don't quote me on it, but that is one of the reasons why it falls in that category where they can capitalize on that. So IT, all of IT, this is just another example. I believe all of ITs can be considered for the rescue, American Rescue Plan that we have out there from the $53 million or so. That's how that came about. I don't know the specifics of, the sheriff's department, if they have their own plan or, whatever the case may be. But from my understanding is Mr. Richter and Mr. Thompson worked with all departments to capture all of the capital needs that are out there within the county. And that's how they arrived with recommendations and a laundry list of all the items that are currently being worked on. So that's how that process came about. And Mr. Richter has laid out a schedule that he followed essentially on tackling some of the capital improvement projects out there, infrastructure.
We have needed a capital improvement plan for a long time. We've been working without one, and that's one of the reasons that we borrow money to pay for things, because we have no capital improvement program. I'm glad to see that you're taking the $3 million, you're dedicating that out of the host fee. Will this be continuing every year, that $3 million coming out of there, as other obligations that we have drop off? Are we going to be able to maintain that $3 million over a period of years to keep supporting our capital improvement program?
Sure. So my understanding is the $3 million is a one-time through the host fees. And the reason why administration and the CFO kind of brought this to our attention to go this direction is for not having to go out for bonding. Because in total, it would be about $9 million, for this piece of it. But obviously, we have 2 years worth of this American Rescue Plan that's going to eat the big chunk out of it, most of it. But from our perspective, it's a one-time from the host fees for the $3 million for this year. And then, going forward, it's going to be, I believe the second round would be of the rescue plan or whatever in year 2. So it's essentially, from my understanding, it's just a one-time from the host fee for $3 million, but in order to not go out for bonding, that was the reason why we chose this direction. So we wouldn't have to, bond out these capital improvement projects out there.
I would like to see something like this continue, so we have a capital improvement program. I know the host fees aren't going to last forever. In the meantime, if we can build up a reserve by doing this and getting our bills paid as they come in, we probably will find time. We will find that we're going to be able to support a long-term capital improvement. We're in the mess we are in because we haven't had a capital improvement program.
Yeah.
And I to really see this continue on, and we need a lot more discussion, and perhaps we can, our office can figure out how we can continue this on, and that way we can build up a reserve.
Right. No, absolutely. And if I may add, and then I'll go to Mr. Butita and some other folks, but my understanding is that I spoke to Mr. Rickert about this, having, a plan, a continuum plan, not just a one-time kind of like, let's tackle some of these issues that we have out there. So I did instruct him to kind of start developing a long-term plan and having a list of things and how we could essentially, alleviate some of these issues that are currently existing out there. Not just Band-Aid it, but more importantly, obviously be proactive as we continue to go on. But absolutely, it's part of the process that we're trying to go in that direction. It's just a great opportunity for us that the American Recovery and Rescue Plan came into play. That kind of goes in hand where we can use some of those monies to support some of these capital projects that we have out there. So it is going to be an ongoing process. Not saying that we're going to spend millions and millions of dollars or whatever the case may be, but obviously having some sort of plan out there, a capital improvement plan going forward, so we can address some of these issues that are existing for kicking the can down the road because of budget constraints or whatever the case may be. So that is something that I kind of address with Mr. Richter, just making sure that we devise some sort of capital improvement plan going forward. So Mr. Butita, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Rickard's presentation was a one-year plan. It wasn't a long-term, which
Correct.
I agree with you. We probably need to investigate. But I voted in favor of the $3 million transfer from host fee funds, a one-time transfer to the budget. It was like a $9 million capital improvement budget. So I did vote in favor of it in the finance committee. But I'm curious, Mr. Tassoni made an impassioned plea for host fee funds to go to the highway department several months ago, maybe a couple months ago. And I forget if it was in the finance committee or if it was economic development. But I think at that point in time, we all agreed with him. And I don't know if Dave's had a chance to review the current presentation. I would appreciate his views on this economic development project and the use of the fund, and can we serve two masters with the host fee funds, the highway department and capital improvement. So if he's available to do that, if not, maybe at the board level. Thank you.
Mr. Tassoni?
No, I have not seen I'm anxious to see a presentation from Mr. Rickard on Thursday night to see how that's outlined and how that's entailed. I have not seen the tentative draft of the capital improvement program.
I'll send it out after our meeting to everyone.
Appreciate it.
Yep. And yeah, I think there was only like 3 projects, I want to say, Mr. Butita, Mr. Arena, those that were in. I think Mr. Richter met with Mr. Molina and kind of praised him for actually being very frugal on trying to spend money and stuff like that, finding ways. So I'd be kind of interested to see if Mr. Tassoni talking to Mr. Molina and then Mr. Richter as well to kind of get a sense and idea if that capital plan for the current that we have for the 1 year kind of, coincides and is actually a reality. And then hopefully, going forward, as Mr. Richter kind of puts together a capital improvement plan, not just a one time, but a multi-year, whatever, a laundry list of things that we can, so when we have the opportunity, when funding comes available, we can capture some of those things. So we'll wait and see on that. Go ahead, Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have seen, I guess, so to speak, a draft that Mr. Molina had as far as some immediate needs or wants. And that's it. I haven't seen how it plays out in the capital plan.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just for anyone who didn't have a chance to see the finance committee meeting, it's a long list of projects and all of the projects that they could do using the money, the COVID relief money that's coming from the federal government is going to be dedicated to that funding source. The stuff like the HVAC units in our buildings, that can be done through those American Recovery Act funds. I think that's what it's called. And then there was stuff to do with this $3 million from the host fees. And then I think there was stuff on that list that were going to be put off until, right? Everything was color coded on it, and some was blue, some was white, Mr. Salgado, right?
Yep.
Not all of it's being done right now.
Yeah, one of the perfect examples is the public safety building, right? There's some funding allocated out there that it's still not on the board. I think it was $1.3 million. Don't quote me on the total dollar, but I believe it was about 1.3 million. That's not on the table. It's something to think about in the near future for that.
And they're hoping to use that they could, for removal of the heating system in that building, they believe they could utilize the American Recovery Act funds. Because anything that replaces your HVAC system with a system that purifies the air is eligible under that funding. So,
Sure.
But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in, that the 3 million is for our immediate needs, but there's a longer range plan incorporated into it as well.
Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to see that we're finally moving away from saying that the host fee monies can only be used for economic development. 10 years ago, when I argued that, I about got strung up for suggesting that we use it for something else. But as we move forward over the last few years, and then I don't know, what was it, 2-3 years ago there, when I suggested having a moratorium, I need more long-term spendings out of the host fees. And we did get that done as well. And so I think by doing that, that just put the brakes on the way we looked at spending that host fee money. And that gave it a new life by the way we have dedicated to use that host fee money now by loaning it as opposed to just giving it out. And so once again, I'm glad we got away from holding to some hard line that really never was a hard line. That money should have always gone to the general fund to be used as the best way that we see fit to begin with. Thank you.
So I'll hand it back to Mr. Arena.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it, Mr. Arena.
Thank you, Mr. Salgado. And to add one more point, the money, the host fee money is coming from our reserves of host fee funds.
Correct.
It was like, I don't know, $5 million.
Yep.
And this leaves $2 million. So it's not the incoming revenue that's from this year. Okay, next up is zoning, Mr. Webster.
Okay. We have a zoning committee meeting this coming Wednesday. One action item, I guess you might say, there, but the first item we have on there is it will be in for a read-in layover. It's a map amendment. So we'll be dealing with that at committee Wednesday, and I'll be reading it in to the meeting Thursday. So we haven't voted on that one yet, so it's really not a lot to discuss on that, I guess. But we have another item coming in that we will take action on, and that's a resolution. And so if you look at your emails there that got sent out from the zoning staff, you can see what this is all about. But the resolution's calling for the governor and the General Assembly to protect local control of zoning and land use with regard to commercial wind power energy facilities, wind farms, in other words. And this came about because there's a Senate bill making its way through 1602. I don't know when it'll be voted on, but we want to get this in there before it is because it's important. This Senate bill is something that the wind farm industry drew this up, so it's to their advantage, obviously. But what it amounts to there is the state then taking more of the abilities, the local decision-making away from us, and then put it in the hands of the state. And so when that happens, you know, we have less say-so on the way that we want to site wind farms and so forth, and the things that go along with them. And and I might say this to you too, statewide, all the other counties in the state by way of special use permits for their wind farms, okay? And so every time they did that, they got sued, every time. So we knew that would happen. And so years ago there, we decided that, you know what, if we made that an allowable use in the agricultural district, spell out everything that can and cannot be done, then we figured we'd get sued one time, which we did, and we fought that in federal court and we prevailed. So our ordinance stands. And our ordinance, the things we have in our ordinance are tighter than most of the things that the counties use under special use permit anyways. But we don't need them to be taking any any ill abilities to safeguard our own community away from us. And as a follow up to that idea there, that's exactly what happened with the hog farms. And so the counties have no say so about citing a hog farm. None. You can hold a hearing and listen to people's complaints or whatever, but that's all you can do, because the Department of Agriculture, the State Department of Agriculture, is the one that makes the final any decision on citing ability of a hog farm. So this goes down the same road there, and we don't want to see that happening. I don't think we do, about the state taking more and more abilities away from counties to manage our own. And so I'm asking, I'll be bringing this in to the county board Thursday night, and we're asking to vote on that. So if you want to get familiar with it, definitely go online, and the information is right there. So in fact, Troy came up on his summary there for us, the background, and you can read that as well.
Okay.
Questions on that?
Jen?
Mr. Webster,
Yes,
this is Angela Fellers.
yes.
Has that bill been assigned to committee? Is it, what stage is it in?
I don't know what stage it's in right now, Ms. Fellers, but I'm told that it could be voted on at any time is what I was told. So that's why it's important for us to get our say-so in there now. Boone County did a similar resolution last week at their board. They did that. And also the Farm Bureau, as opposed to this as well, through their lobbyists.
Jim Anchigoro.
Yes,
We worked very hard on zoning when we did our 2030 plan to help regulate the wind farms. And we did a good job on that. I sure don't want the state coming in now and telling us what to do and how to do it. We can take Texas for a good example. Each county should regulate their own wind farms according to their zoning. And we did do a good job. We did a lot of research on it before we even got very far into our policy for wind farms. So I'm with you on this. I don't want that state coming and telling us what to do when we already know what to do.
yeah, thank you, Angie. Yeah, when we did ours, and we decided that as opposed to fighting a wind farm application every time, or having people fight about it every time by way of a special use permit, that's when we said, we could make it an allowable use. So we did take our time. We looked at everything every other county has ever fought for or against pertaining to wind farms, and we melded all of those things together along with our wants and needs. And that's how we got to an allowable use. And yes, it was challenged, and yes, it was defended in federal court, no less, and we prevailed on that. And there's so much included in our wind farm ordinance there. There's over 20 pages on ours, which is pretty unheard of. It would take a pretty big slice out of that 2030 plan. So we adopted ours in October 22nd of 2009 for commercial wind power generating facilities. And we had our rules and regulations. It was extensive, and we had public hearings from anyone that wanted to have input on this, including the cities, the counties, and the townships, and so forth. And so ours was extremely thorough.
And as I recall, the city of Rockford has their own ordinance according to the type of wind turbine or wind can be used within the city of Rockford. They do have a couple of places where they do operate on the wind turbines, but they're very inconspicuous, and they're rounded, and they're on top of buildings, but you don't normally even see them. There's not like what we know of them, being out in the middle of the field and being all white and high. So I'm pretty sure the city has their own because there are several throughout the city.
Yes, as all zoning is, ours pertains to unincorporated areas only. And so if the county board wishes to maintain local control by way of zoning, then we need to vote on this. Okay, and so we need to vote on sending our resolution downstate. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Webster. Let me get my agenda up here. I think next is economic development. And Mr. Billich is not with us. Ed?
I'm filling in, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. The Economic Development Committee has one resolution, and that resolution is authorizing the chairman of the county board to execute a redevelopment agreement by and between the county of Winnebago, Illinois, and Venture One Development, LLC, for Project Sawgrass. And is the chairman on? Chairman Shirelli? Can you
I don't
speak to
see him
that?
on.
Is he on?
No, he's not.
Okay. I don't have all of the information for this project. Is there anyone else on the committee that can speak to this?
Who else is on economic development?
I'm
Some
also on-
neighbors. Okay.
This is Angela Fellers. It's a $20 million project being funded in the TIF district off of Baxter Road. The reason
Oh,
that
yeah.
it's under a non-disclosure agreement, which is why we're calling it Project Sawgrass. And we're looking at a lot of jobs and a lot of investment that is coming in. And I don't have my notes in front of me to tell you what the estimated improved land value for tax revenue would be, but I do remember that it was significant. If Mr. Rickard is on the phone or Mr. Dornbush, they may be able to answer that more directly, but it's included in the packet.
No, neither one of them are on. And I listened to the committee meeting and I do recall that there was a significant tax benefit for us. Are there any other comments or questions on that topic? Okay. None. We'll move on. Operations and Administrative Committee, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Operations got 5 resolutions for us on Thursday. The first resolution authorizing the execution of a renewal agreement with Vision Service Plan, VSP, for voluntary vision insurance. We were able to get a 6% discount over last year from what Deb Crozer was saying, the same coverage. The next resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with Zero Card for a voluntary supplemental health benefit. And this was kind of a neat thing. It's going to save the county lots of money. And what the Zero Card does is kind of bundle things up. If you need to go get MRIs or further diagnostic, if you go through their channels type thing, they bundle it up and they can save the county quite a bit of money that way. That is a cost to the county and not the employee, but it will save the county money in doing it this way. The next resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with ARA Benefits program for voluntary identity guard plan. So this is identity guard. All county employees will be eligible for it. It's at no cost to the county. The employee is the one that picks up the cost on this plan. Next resolution will be approval of Winnebago County Board Chairman proposed vehicle use. This resolution came at the recommendation of the auditor, and it's going to allow the chairman to use a car from the carpool. And the final resolution is to approve telecommunications service contract. And that, if I remember right, that was a 3-year contract.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. McDonald? Okay, that was quick and easy. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Next up is Public Works, Mr. Tassoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public Works Committee has 3 resolutions for this Thursday night. The first item would be a 21-008. It's a resolution authorizing the award of a bid for expansion joint repair on Meridian Road Bridge over the Pecatonica River at cost of $22,000. We fill these cracks on to limit, freeze and thaw and ice and salt getting in there. preventative maintenance item. The next one is 21-009. It's a resolution authorizing the execution of a local public agency agreement with Willett Hoffman and Associates for the appropriation of local share funds to provide construction engineering services for the rehabilitation of Alpine Road Bridge over Forest Hills. This goes with that bridge reconstruction. It's a cost of $320,000. That is a budgeted item. And final, we're asking, it was a couple of weeks back that we approved a bid for mowing and weed control, but this one is a resolution rescinding that resolution. The contractor that was low bidder for mowing and weed control, spraying weed spray on the medians and stuff, they rescinded their bid after being low bidder. And since for what I didn't get the specifics as far as why they backed out, but they have since been placed on an irresponsible bid list and will not be allowed to bid again. And subsequently, it was given out to the second lowest bidder and just a few $1,000s more. So we will be asking for a rescinding of that item. Any questions, comments?
For Mr. Tassoni. Okay, it's a sleepy group tonight. Thank you, Mr. Tassoni. Moving on, Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, Mr. Gurl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We won't have an item for Thursday, no resolutions, but we will be discussing a few items. First, we'll have an update from Marlene Adakin. She is our criminal justice coordinating counsel. So she'll be answering questions, explaining her role, exactly what she's accomplished, what she plans on accomplishing, and the challenges that face the county as far as reentry goes. Prisoners coming in from Illinois Department of Corrections and through our jail, about how we can integrate them back into the community better, provide services to those individuals. We'll also be discussing challenges regarding probation and parole and different programs that Marlena has identified that could help the county better navigate through this probation parole and actually provide better services and reduce and eliminate a portion of recidivism that comes from Illinois Department of Corrections and through our people that frequent our jail. So a great discussion to be had there for sure. And there will also be the Jim Webster discussion on gun laws versus state and federal, and exactly how that comes to fruition and how the federal government plays a role in our state prosecution and how they decide what cases to prosecute and what cases the state gets to prosecute. So look forward to that discussion. So hopefully Mr. Webster will be tuning in Wednesday, 5:30. And anyone else that would like to know about state laws, federal laws, and gun cases. So look forward to that. Our next item for discussion will be an IGA for county reimbursement of attorney fees. And this is through the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. So the state's attorney will be adding or providing ad litem services to the state, and we will be reimbursed through the state for those services that we provide through the court cases. And that is all we have for this week.
Any questions for Mr. Gurl? Mr. Webster.
Find my button here. Yeah, Bert, I'm glad you put this together. And that part about prosecuting felons with a gun is the part that I'm most interested in, because for many, many years, that law has been on the books. Convicted felon in possession of a gun or possession of a bullet or walking into a gun store, any of those things is a 5-year minimum sentence. And so many times over the years there, you see them arresting a bad guy in the street and they're charged with a little bit of drugs or what have you, but also as being a convicted felon with a gun. The feds made that law. The feds need to enforce that. just like bank robbery, just like tax evasion. You don't see our local state's attorneys in that getting involved with prosecuting a bank robber because it's a federal law. The feds step in and do that. That needs to be done time after time. Feds with a felon with a gun, same way. We shouldn't be saddled with that locally here, taking resources away from our state's attorney's office and putting more, I don't know, more strain on our local jail and on our officers that are within that jail and all of our resources. You know, and so if the feds stepped up to the plate every single time, took the guy, give him that maximum minimum 5-year, it could be a lot more than that, to get them off of our streets here locally and out of our pocketbook. So I'm glad to see this happen, Bert, and I hope they've had some stats from the last year or so about how many local arrests have been made of felon in possession and didn't make it to the feds prosecute. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely, Mr. Webster. Look forward to the discussion. And as far as the facts go, I'm not sure if those are something that we can get from the crime numbers from the feds or if locally we have those here. But that is something that if they don't have, we can follow back on and make sure that we get.
Yeah. And if I'm off course on this, go ahead and tell me, but I think Aaron might know a little bit of this year in law enforcement. Am I off track on this or are we on to something?
Mr. Booker, if you want to comment, I have a comment, but I'll let you go first.
Thank you, Chairman. No, Mr. Webster's right. If we've got federal laws and we've got felons committing crimes with a criminal history, with any history involving crimes involving a weapon, a lot of these felons still getting weapons. So yeah, we'll have a good discussion, and hopefully there'll be somebody to provide a satisfactory answer for us on what's going on federally and charging these individuals. So yeah, our state's attorney's office unfortunately gets their hands tied on these things. So sometimes the state's attorney's office can put a little pressure on the U.S. attorneys on prosecution. So I think we have a state's attorney that's going to be doing that type of pressure. So let's hope. Let's cross our fingers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Booker.
Thank you, Aaron. And that's the point that I try to make over the years, that our state's attorneys shouldn't have to pressure the feds into doing what's right. It just makes so little sense to me. The feds ought to step in immediately. They're local here. They read the paper. They see the news. They see when an arrest is made, felon with a gun. They ought to be jumping in there with both feet. We shouldn't have to arm twist them to do their job. It's crazy. Thank you.
Yep, agree 100%, Mr. Webster. Fortunately, our state's attorney, Mr. Hanley, does have federal prosecution experience. So hopefully those relationships that he has with the federal government can come to fruition and actually help Winnebago County here out in this instance. So I look forward to the discussion and tune in Wednesday.
Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you, Mr. Grohl. I have a question for you. We had talked before about doing some meetings to expand or inform us on this criminal reform bill. Is that still in the works to do some of the topics in that?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman. And there has been lots of talk on the back channels, lots of communications with the Sheriff's Department, our Chief Judge, our state's attorney, with our local delegation to come up with amendments on this. So there is work on the back channels. So once we hear back that either A, the amendments are happening, or B, that they're not, then I would suggest that we take action and pass a resolution sooner than later to support our local law enforcement, our court systems into supporting what they believe is the right way to go about this reform. So I look forward to having that discussion, hopefully here soon. After we have this discussion, that will be the next one on our plate.
Yeah, because like I guess I'd like to be better informed on what it really means. Like I was told that this reform bill takes away trespassing as a crime. So you could have people coming, obviously me as a property owner, I have concerns, but just average citizens should be concerned because you could have salesmen coming to your door and bothering you and you can't tell them to leave your property. That's one example. I'd like to better understand what this no cash bail really means. And then I was also told that resisting arrest was removed from as a crime. So basically, if somebody doesn't want to be arrested under this new law, they could avoid it, which seems absurd. But just because I've been told that doesn't mean it's true. And I guess that's why I'd like us to have some meetings to get some clarity on what it really means. So if we could do that sooner rather than later, I would be interested in it.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Girl
Yes.
or Mr. Arena, I believe it's important that when we do that we bring in members of the Black Caucus and people who are responsible for writing the bill, as well as members of law enforcement and the state's attorney's office. Some of the things that Mr. Arena just pointed to are perfect examples of misinterpretations or things that were taken out of context from the bill. And so I think that it's important that there be a clear understanding, not only of how the bill was researched and how it came about, because there are a lot of rumors about it having been done privately when there were multiple public hearings on it. And that we make sure that we're getting a balanced approach to not only the bill itself, but also the context of it.
No, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, I reached out to our administrator, Mr. Thompson, about 6-7 weeks ago to set up a meeting with Mr. West, our Representative West office, to get some of the bill writers into our committee. And I'm not sure exactly if there's been a delay or just a lack of communication, what is going on there, but I have asked for Representative West to engage into the county board public safety committee, and so where we can ask these questions and get some answers, because there are a lot of misnomers out there. Some may be true, some aren't. Whether or not a officer can be held personally responsible as far as financially and being sued by their actions while on duty is also concerning. And also concerning is whether or not the deputy can be fired and criminally prosecuted for failing to turn on their body camera during an incident. So there are a lot of fluid things that go on in police work, and sometimes accidents and mistakes happen, and we can't hold officers criminally and personally responsible for such actions, whether it be, whatever. But there's good points to be had there. So I really would like to have this conversation with Mr. Representative West's office and any other member of the Black Caucus that was involved with this bill, because from what I'm hearing, there was zero conversations with anyone locally on this bill as far as law enforcement or judicial state's attorney. So it's sad that there wasn't communication between Winnebago County and our delegation during this bill. There was probably many discussions outside of the county, but as far as I remember and what I've been told, that there was no discussions here locally. So that's what we need to get around, and that's why we need to have someone come in to explain this and clear up some of these things for us.
Right. I completely agree, especially the points that you were talking about at the beginning about officers being held personally or financially responsible. What you're speaking to is something called qualified immunity. And qualified immunity was removed from the bill, which was passed. So is no longer there. There is a bill right now that's there, but it's not part of the one that's already has passed. But there were there were some things that were concerning as far as organized labor. Those were addressed. And so that's why I think that it's important. And if Mr. West isn't available or isn't able to make himself available, perhaps Mr. Vella would be an option as well. He has a history of being a criminal defense attorney as well as a state rep, and I'm sure that he has a very good understanding of the bill itself.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Feller.
Okay, thank you. So I think that covers all the standing committees. I have a couple of items. Does anyone else have any new business or old business they want to discuss before I talk about my things? Okay, seeing none, I got two things. One, this week's meeting, we're going to try to meet in person. Mr. Thompson contacted me today and saying they're having some difficulty setting up the Zoom feed from the boardroom for members that aren't going to attend in person. He asked me to get a head count of who was planning to participate by Zoom this week. I know Mr. Schultz said he would be. Who else that's on this meeting right now will be Zoom? Okay, we got Mr. Butita, Mr. Girl. Booker, you're by Zoom this week or in person?
I'm in person. I think I misunderstood. Yes, I'm in person.
Okay, right. So that's what I figured. So we got,
Dorothy Red by Zoom.
okay, we got Dorothy Red.
Dorothy Red by Zoom.
I'm sorry, Dorothy, Angie, was that you?
Yes,
Your Zoom?
Zoom.
yes.
Okay, Mr.
Dorothy-
Butita by Zoom?
Dorothy Zoom.
Gotcha, Dorothy. Butita Zoom,
Yes.
Girl Zoom. And then Schultz.
Mr. Salgado as well. That's Zoom.
Legato Zoom.
Ms. Fellers will be by Zoom.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 7 of us that are here tonight are Zoom. Who's not with us? Schultz isn't here tonight. Tim Neighbors.
David Kelly,
Dave,
David Kelly.
he's here. His name's on the screen. Are you saying he's going to do Zoom or is he?
He said he's doing it in person. It's on the chat.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Okay, Kelly's in person. Okay, so we don't have, I need to check with Jazz. Schultz I already knew about, and Tim. That's the only other people who aren't here with us tonight. Okay. Okay, so there is a possibility if they can't get the Zoom feed working in the boardroom, that the meeting will have to be by Zoom. I'm going to go there tomorrow, and I will let everyone know as soon as I know, or someone will let you know. Any questions or comments about that, Mr. Webster?
Yeah, just a thought. If it's too difficult to set up the county board room, I don't know why we couldn't do it in room 303 at the administration building. They've set them up there before like that.
Set up the Zoom. I think he said it was the Zoom feed from the boardroom for those of us that are in the boardroom to be participating by Zoom. It was the way I understood what he said.
Okay.
Because we'll be together, but we also have to be on Zoom.
Yes, and we had meetings like that early on when we did this. We had meetings in 303. Some people were Zoom and some were there physically.
So you're saying we could do the board meeting from 303? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm just, I don't know really what's going on, but I'm thinking if we're going to do a hybrid meeting and they can't get the board room set up to do a hybrid meeting, then perhaps they could use room 303 in the administration building.
Okay. I will, I'll bring that to their attention. I'll mention it.
My question is, this is Angie Gorel. My question is, with our gallery, where will they be? People, because then it'll be an open meeting, and where will the people who want to attend, where will they be seated?
I will ask that question. I don't know. I believe that they were coordinating with Dr. Martell to make sure we're compliant with whatever regulations are in place. But
Thank
I
you.
will ask that question. Okay. Any further? Go ahead, Angie. Did you have something else?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So if there's nothing else on that, the next thing I want to talk about is something that came up at our last meeting about an abstention on a vote. And the question was asked to Ms. Vaughn if a reason had to be given. I think Mr. Kelly pointed out our code says that you can abstain for if you have a conflict of a financial conflict of interest. But I don't know that it's written specifically that you have to disclose what that is. And then also, when we had our training on parliamentary procedure, the trainer pointed out that the way our code is written, the vote is by a majority of those present, is how it's worded now. And which means that if somebody abstains, it acts as a no vote. She said our code should say present and voting, a majority of those present and voting, so that an abstention doesn't count as a no. So, like, have you noticed Clerk Gumow has been saying present and voting, but she's incorporating that language, that suggested language into our procedure, but by our ordinance, that's not how it is right now. So we need to decide, do we want to change our ordinance to say present and voting? And then should we get clarification on when you can abstain? Because the code right now says just you can abstain if you have a conflict, an economic conflict of interest. Should we require board members to disclose what they're talking about if they say I have a financial conflict of interest? Or if we're not going to do that, then maybe we should just take that out entirely and let people abstain if they want to abstain. I believe in Springfield, I see people vote present all the time. They just don't vote. So the downside of that is, well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It's just, if you have the ability to just abstain because you don't feel like voting, there's a tough vote and you don't want to be on record, you don't have to vote. And I guess I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just how we operate. So it's a decision that as a board we need to make. So I'd like to hear feedback from you guys on this. Should you have to give a reason when you abstain?
Mr. Arena, I don't feel that when we're being appointed to a committee and it goes through the board, I don't believe we should be voting for ourselves. I believe we should be abstaining. If that's not part of our procedure, then we need to put it in there.
I agree. So maybe we should take out from our code that you need to give a reason to abstain. Or it says now you can abstain if you have a financial interest. Should we expand that, or should we just say you have to disclose your reason for abstaining, or should we just let people abstain if they want to abstain? And we don't have to decide on this tonight because it's been this way for a long time. We could just start the conversation. We could think about it, but anybody
I
else?
think that's another code or policy that needs to be updated to the present.
It's a what?
That is something that should be updated to the present time.
Okay.
You know, some of those are so old that when was it put together, in the 1940s? We need to really bring, that's one reason we need a policy committee. So many of our things need to be updated with today's verbiage and with the changes that have gone on. That's just a suggestion that we should be doing. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just, we decide how we want to conduct business. So we can, I think on this point, we can just do it among ourselves. Mr. Tassoni, you had your hand up, and then Mr. Butita, and then Mr. Hoffman.
Well, and just my personal take on it. I mean, from what I've seen over the years, I think we abstain on more than necessary. But for my own personal thought is, if you're not the one to gain financially in any aspect, or in some case, your employer or immediate family, that would be as far as I would go.
On allowing abstentions?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, if you yourself's not getting a personal gain, your employer or your immediate family, maybe, and anything other than that, I think you should vote.
Okay. Mr. Butita?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think our former state's attorney a couple times instructed us that it's a state law on how you vote on this. Now, I may be wrong, but certainly we should consult with Mr. Hanley just to make sure in conformity.
Well, I talked to Ms. Vaughn, and she said you don't have to give a reason why you abstain. So I think that was what she said during the meeting. So her advice there,
Okay,
you know, like I said, our code just says you have to, it's in a case if there's a conflict, an economic conflict of interest, but I don't think it says you have to disclose what that is.
yeah,
So it's
I'm
just,
good with that.
we decide how we want this to work, and then we clear up our code so it operates. I got Mr. Hoffman, then I got Ms. Crosby.
Thanks, Chairman. I just want to say one thing. I don't think abstaining is the same as the no vote, for one thing, because let's say 10 people abstain, 6 people still win, right? You got 20 members.
Well,
6 still takes it.
It's how our code is written, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I'm just saying it's not quite the same as a no vote. The other thing I'm gonna say, I do think that financial is a personal issue, but I think there are other personal issues that may affect you so that you don't feel like you can be completely fair in your vote, or may not look like you're being completely fair. So I'm all for, I think personal and financial are two very good items to abstain with.
Okay, and then do you feel that you should have to explain why you're abstaining?
I think you should be able, I don't think you should have to explain it. But I think you should announce it, that it's a personal issue or it's a financial issue. I don't
Okay.
think you have to explain the reason. If we get to that point, it's more like you're being interrogated.
Okay, so just to clarify what I said about the abstention working like a no vote, our code now says you need a majority of those present. So if all 20 of us are there, you need 11 votes. And so if I abstain, there still needs to be 11 votes.
Right.
So it's like I work like my vote is on the not positive side. That's why she said it works like a no.
Right. And that's the other thing I think we should check, because I have not seen it counted that way in any time. Now, that may be because we haven't been doing it right, but I think I would double check that too.
Right. And yeah, we will. This was, she's an objective observer, and that's what she said to us. So just, we can clarify it. Okay, Ms. Crosby and then Mr. Tassoni.
I'm going to agree with Mr. Tassoni. Financial reasons, something that impacts your work, a family member's work, whatever, but it should be a limited scope. And if the only reason people should have to give isn't anything in finite detail, all you can say is due to financial interest, I abstain due to personal interest, and be done. I don't think we need a long, lengthy explanation of what the personal or financial is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tassoni, right, next, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just hypothetically, I guess, or not, maybe in reality, that just brings to mind that if this board or any other board chose to increase their pay on this board, how would that not be a conflict of interest, voting to increase your own pay on this board?
I can weigh in on that one, Mr. Tassoni. The way that the state law is written, we can't vote to give ourselves raises. We can only vote to increase the compensation for future boards. So you're not voting on your own pay, you're voting on the pay of the next elected board. So if you were to be reelected, then that would affect you. But when you're taking the vote, the assumption is that it would not.
Okay, I can live with that. Thank you.
Mr. Webster, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what John said, and I agree with Gene. I think that having a reason to abstain, just saying it's either financial or personal, that's good enough. I don't think we need to go any further than that. I also agree with what John said about checking what the state rules and regs are on this, because sometimes you might want to abstain. Who knows? There might be something happening, building a highway or taking some property away from some people to widen the highway or whatever. And you might find yourself in conflict there because your cousin lives on that road and he doesn't want to see that taken away. And so that's a personal conflict there. So I can understand why there would be various reasons. Having to get real specific about it, I think if you just claim personal or financial reasons, that's good enough, because under financial, it could be so many things. It could be somebody you worked for, or somebody that you bought some land from or sold some land to, or things like this. There's a lot of reasons that could fall under financial, but I definitely think that we should do some due diligence and see what state law says about this. Because I think that our state's attorney's office now is dealing with what happens in civil matters, of course, and maybe isn't as well versed in what the state says on this. And going back to my days on zoning board of appeals, not really often, but often enough, ZBA members abstained because a zoning change was going to affect their neighbor or their brother or cousin or uncle or something like that. And so I think that, I think that they should have just a very vague reason, but a reason.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll talk to Lafa and have her check it out. But it sounds to me like if anyone just wants to say I have a personal or financial conflict, that's sufficient, and we don't have to expand from there. And then I think we should change our code to say it's a majority of those present and voting, not just those present. Because I don't think an abstention should, skew it towards the negative, the vote.
I agree.
Okay. All right, we can talk to her about that. And that, I'm sure, there's something in there about changing our rules of procedure. I think it'd go through operations or something. Ms. Crosby?
The only question I have is, where in our history has an abstention have a negative impact on the vote? Usually in the meetings I've been, and I've been in plenty, guys, at most you have one, maybe two people abstain. To have 10 people abstain is just kind of, out in left field talk. So I'm not sure that we've even had a problem, Paul, with abstentions. I can't think of one time where abstentions really affected the votes. So I'm not so sure we need to change it. That's all I'm saying.
The issue wouldn't
you.
be with, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jane. Were you finished?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm done, Angela.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The issue wouldn't be if 10 people abstained. The issue would be, for example, if we had a vote that was that 11 people voted for and 10 people voted for and 9 people voted against and 1 abstained, then that motion would pass on a 10 No, that motion would go to the chairman on a 10-10 vote because it would be 10 yes, 9 no, 1 abstention, but 10 wouldn't be the majority of the people present. Does that make sense? So on a close vote or on a tie vote, if there's an abstention, right now it counts as a no. So 10 yes, 9 no, 1 abstention would equal a 10 yes, 10 no vote. Because there would only be 10 yeses out of 20 people present.
I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Good example, Angela. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hoffman, then Mr. Tassoni.
Yeah, just quickly, I think what Ms. Feller says is right. But in the past, all the years I've been on, nobody's ever counted an abstention vote as a no. It's always been if somebody abstains, there's 19 people, they count the 19 votes. So we may have been doing it wrong all those years, but that's how it's been done.
Right. I'm responding to what Nancy Sylvester said when she looked at our code and said you should correct this.
No,
If we
I agree.
don't
I
want
agree. I
to
hear
correct
what
it.
you're saying, but I'm just making a comment that the reason we've never seen it as a problem, as Ms. Crosby was saying, she's right. I doubt if it would ever affect us, Reed, but we've never counted them as a negative vote. You know what I'm saying? We've always only counted the votes that people actually voted for something or against something.
Right. Mr.
So
Tassoni.
I think the point here is that it's important that it be codified so that it's not challenged.
I agree.
Right, because now that we know about it, if you're on the losing side of a close vote,
Right,
somebody's
exactly.
gonna reject, right?
Yeah, just because we found out we've been doing it wrong doesn't mean we should continue doing it.
Mr. Tassoni, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just echo some, I guess, what your thoughts were. I think an abstention should be just a no vote, present, so to speak. And it should only be counted as the members present. The members present and voting should make the till.
Right, so that would require a change to how our ordinance is written.
He says, then we do it in the, we'll do it in.
Paul,
Yes,
Goro,
go
we
ahead.
have people, but they would say it's pass. And then they would account how many votes were yes, how many votes were no. So at the end, then they could do their swing vote, whichever way they wanted. And that's no different than the abstaining. So I personally believe we need to update our code and get that all down in black and white, because tomorrow's a different day, and who knows tomorrow. So we need to get it straightened out.
All right. Okay. Well, that's a good discussion. Thank you all. I'm gonna just run this by LAFA again, see if there's anything we need to know at state law, and we can revisit this again at a future caucus and decide, what and if anything we want to do. But I just wanted to bring it up since it came up at the last meeting. So is there anything else further for tonight? Okay, seeing nothing. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Girl. Second by Angela. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.